We have the platform set to replicate the angle that I like to use for my 3/8 inch round shank skew. I have a special jig that registers on the grinding wheel and registers on the platform to get me that angle. Turn the grinder on. Any hesitation I make creates a slight hollow grind, but what I'm concerned about and what I'm looking for is that the edge angle in the very center is the right angle. All the rest of this bevel I'm just grinding to remove it away. Let's do the other side. Getting that edge parallel to the face of the wheel, pressing slightly down with my thumb, and my other hand is guiding the tool shank. Starting at the edge and gliding up. Starting at the edge, gliding up. Now I want to make sure that the edge is balanced in the center of the shank, so that the edge is in the center of the shank. So I'm looking down the shank. I'm going to go a few more light passes on each side just to see if I can get it really light and really smooth. Just means less work with sandpaper. That turned out really nice. Now the other side. Couple passes. You might notice that I blued over the steel just slightly. This is high-speed steel, so the bluing doesn't affect the temper at all. So I'm going to grind this facet or this bevel until that wire edge disappears. If you watch right at the edge, you can see it disappear. See it disappear right as I was sneaking up on it. I'm going to go up just once or twice, really light. And there we go, I have a nice clean facet. I'm going to blend this bevel back just a little bit more so that it's even on both sides. All I need to do is start with the edge parallel to the face of the wheel and push up just a little bit higher, starting to blend it just a little bit further into the shank. There we go. This skew is almost completed. We just have a couple refining touches of the bevel to tune up this edge so we could shave with it. When I was pushing the skew up the wheel to create this convex bevel, any little pauses will create a little micro hollow grind or concave surface. When I go from this side, my thumb is placing pressure towards the platform and my other hand is pushing the skew up the wheel. You'll notice it's bridging from the wheel to the corner or the edge of the platform. This section in here is not touching at all. So I'm relying on a very light touch, my edge parallel to the face of the wheel, pressure in, and feeding the tool up the wheel. When I switch to the other side, I switch hands. My other thumb now becomes the pressure down towards the platform. My left hand becomes the feeding hand. I align the edge with the face of the wheel. I gradually and lightly advance the tool up the wheel to create that convex bevel. Now there are some pretty hefty burrs in line with the long point and the short point. So I need to hone, this again is the extra fine Dia-Sharp by DMT. I need to hone in line with that short point and I'm going to rotate it around. As I rotate, the diamond hone actually contacts the heel of the bevel all the way up and around. Once I'm done with the short point, I need to turn it over to do the long point burr. Keeping the entire shank with pressure here, and the rest of my fingers are just giving me traction to feed the skew forward and backwards. taking that burr right off. Next step, using an abrasive to create a true convex bevel. I'm going to use a really simple technique that employs aluminum oxide sandpaper, a Sharpie pen, a diamond hone, and a leather strop that's been charged with emery compound. Let's take a look. A Sharpie pen, I'm blackening the bevel just to give me some visual feedback on what part of the edge has already been polished. From a newly crafted skew or one that's fresh off the grinder, I'd start with 220 grit. Notice I'm using one hand to hold the sandpaper, the other hand is cradling the skew, and the Sharpie is already gone. That tells me that I've met that entire surface with sandpaper. I'll go to the other side, flip the skew over. Same thing, choked up so my pressure is with my index finger. My other fingers just cradle the weight of the shank. You can also see that there's some wire debris. That actually was the edge. I polished one side with this grit and polished the other side, and where they meet creates a really thin wire. It's just barely hanging on. I'm going to re-blacken both sides so I'm ready for the next grit. Once you've practiced this technique and gotten the feel for it, you really don't need to use the Sharpie, but it sure is a nice visual assurance that you've met the edge. I'm going to go to 320 grit. Same technique, cradling the shank or the weight of the shank with my fingers ever so gently, index finger close to the bevel, a nice gentle pressure down. I start with the shank lower and I raise it as I come through the motion of polishing that bevel. I've polished all the way to the edge. Other side. Same thing, index finger pressure, cradling the weight, start shallower and draw the shank up as I finish. With a little bit of practice, you can even hear when that bevel has met the edge. Sharpie again, so we've got visual representation. Now to 400 grit. Same thing, pressure, support, shallow angle, raise the shank up as I draw back. Polished. Other side. Polished. Now I can move on to my diamond hone. This is an extra fine diamond hone by DMT. Same technique, just a finer abrasive. There we go. Other side, same thing. There we go. Blacken the bevel again. Now I move on to emery compound with a leather strop. Polished. Other side. Polished. There you go. Now this is ready to shave with. This is an ultra sharp edge, razor sharp. Whew. The definition of an ultra sharp edge is that it actually divides light. Now that I've got a razor sharp edge on this tool, I want to protect it so that it doesn't get nicked or dinged. I also need to protect myself. Using a piece of flexible tubing or hose, I like the braided hose the best, but this one will do. This tool is a razor sharp edge, two convex bevels that meet. Any other tool that has a convex surface, you can use this same technique. I really only have to go to the diamond hone or the leather strop to maintain this edge. I only go back to the sandpaper or even to the grinder if this edge gets nicked or damaged. So there you have it. We took it to the bench grinder using the platform and a jig that I designed for this skew. And we gently rode the skew up the wheel to create a multifaceted convex bevel. Then we went to the sandpaper technique to blend those microfacets together to create a smooth convex surface. Using a Sharpie pen to highlight so that we could see when we were finished polishing at that grit. We started at 220 grit, worked up through 320, 400 grit, and then we went to a diamond hone. After that, we took care of the final polishing using a leather strop charged with emery compound. I showed you how to protect it using some tubing. Enjoy this sweet little tool. It's sure to become a favorite making shavings at your lathe.